In this video, I'm gonna highlight some key differences between a smaller light source, a medium source, and a larger source. We took the time to shoot 4 different lighting setups, all utilizing different types of diffusions and amount of light, ranging from a bare bones 1 light setup all the way up to a more advanced 4 light setup. All of these setups were shot in the same exact spot with our man Dean Zhu as our model, doing a little cleanup on his Leica gear. Each setup piggybacked off of the natural sunlight coming through the windows left of camera. Let's start with our first setup. In setup number 1, we used 1 light source, the Amaran F22 light mat, opposite side of camera and a negative fill, same side of camera. For the Amaran F22, we decided to leave it bare without any diffusions or grids to match the light quality of an LED panel like an Aperture Nova or Gemini that most creatives will do as a quick basic setup. Along with showing you guys the differences of larger light sources, we also wanted to highlight that even the smallest sources with a tiny bit of diffusion can result in decent results. So don't think you need to break the bank in order to achieve usable results. The goal with lighting in filmmaking is for ultimate control. So although you may yield decent results with a 1 light setup, the farther along you get in your filmmaking journey should push you to continue reaching new levels of understanding. And with that understanding and practice with what you have, then slowly investing in lighting gear that will only give you more control and efficiency, not just because it looks cool. Okay, back to the look. For context, we were shooting on the red Scarlett-W, so the R3D files offers incredible highlight recovery and enhanced skin tone highlight roll-off. In this scene, we have both interior and exterior images. And since it was a sunny day out and this location has plenty of windows, we were able to achieve a great look with only 1 small light source that was only at 30% power. In most cases, when shooting into windows like you see in this shot, you're gonna need a much larger light source like you will see later in the video to balance out the hot sun from the outside to the lower levels of exposure on the inside. Here's how the shot looks originally with just a basic Rec 709 color space transform and a slight S-curve to bring in a little contrast to the image. We did our best to protect the highlights while still keeping proper exposure on Dean. The 16 stops of dynamic range doesn't hurt either in these situations. But you can see the highlights are a little hot, and the more you push this image in the grade, for most cameras, this will fall apart or limit your grading flexibility since we didn't perfectly balance our interior exposure with the highlights from the windows. So if you're working with 1 light like a light mat or LED panel, hopefully this video should give you a clear understanding of the limitations and proper applications of this light and size. Decent look, keep watching, it's gonna get better. Let's look at setup number 2. In this setup, we used a large 38-inch parabolic softbox with a honeycomb grid to control light spill and an Aperture 600D as our key source. We also added a second light for an edge hair light. You should already see how much softer the quality of the light is because of that added diffusion and distance between that and the light in the softbox. A basic concept to understand is once you begin to increase the spread of light and add diffusions with larger frames or softboxes, you will need to have a larger light source to compensate the decrease in light output. So the differences between this look and the first is a smoother, more pleasing highlight roll-off on Dean's skin because of the added softbox and diffusion. Setup number 3 is a simple setup using the Aperture 600D with a Fresnel lens to tighten the spread of the light. We blasted that through a 4x4 frame with a half grid diffusion material, cutting out 1 stop of light. Plus we had our edge hair light in the back. This setup will be comparable to our next and last setup as they are both lit with different frame sizes and strengths of diffusions. As you can see, the light quality and highlight roll-off is similar to our first setup where we only used a light mat without diffusion. This puts emphasis on the type of diffusion in order to get softer light output, not just throwing up a frame. We also went with a Fresnel lens instead of tossing on the standard reflector so that we could control the spread of light. Remember, it's all about control. If we were to use the standard light reflector, our light would be spilling around the frame and onto the background, taking away the beautiful separation we are trying to create with our subject and the background. Let's get into our last setup so that you really see the differences when we up the frame size and strength of diffusion. Setup number 4, same light, Aperture 600D, this time hitting into a 4x4 white bounce and back into an 8x8 frame with a polysilk material cutting out 2 stops of light. We once again had our hair, edge light, and we also added a top down using the Amaran F22 and an Amaran 200X with a spotlight attachment for background texture. This image should really tell the story for you and truly show you the power of having a larger light source. Because we increased the strength of our diffusion, meant that we needed a larger light source to compensate for the light loss. I'll put it plainly, if you want these types of results and flexibility with your image, then you will need a larger light source. The Aperture 600D checks the boxes on the majority of our shoots when we need a high quality and high output source. The technique we used in this setup by bouncing our light and having it go through an additional frame with diffusion was called a book light. Stay tuned for our next video where we will break down how and when to utilize this lighting technique. This setup exponentially softens the light as compared to our other setups for a much more pleasing natural look and feel, which is crucial in filmmaking. Dean puts it this way: it takes a lot of work to make a shot look like it wasn't lit at all. That just means everything looks the way it should be, like it does to our eyes. The added top-down light is crucial to any lighting setup since we were all used to our house lights coming from that same direction. This adds light to the details of his hands and hair. And lastly, we tossed up a spotlight for a beautiful slash across the background, making it feel as if it were coming from the windows in the back. Last thing I wanted to show you was how much flexibility you have when using this type of detailed setup as compared to our first setup with just one light. I'm gonna copy the same grade from our last scene to our first. Look at that. Look how punchy and nasty it looks. That's because you simply don't have the push and pull when lighting with one small light source that you do when lighting with a larger source and other additional lights to properly balance the image. If you light it right, you can grade however you want. And that's it, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this lighting breakdown, highlighting 4 vastly different setups. The goal of this video was to show you the importance of having a larger light source and how much flexibility it gives you when grading in post. Also, having that larger source gives you a more professional look because of the additional options and diffusions. Remember, it's all about control and fighting to create the most natural looking images. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also follow us on Instagram for all the dailies. We appreciate you guys a ton, and we'll see you in the next one.